One person's picture I wasn't pleased with, but really that's the way I looked at it. That's fine.
So are you excited it's Monday?
And the day out of the field, so the cows finish on the factory, and then we go back to Broadwater. They're working on that today. And the sunshine. And we get better and that's true. Yeah. And they're gonna say, well, I'm staying fun.
Hey, Ann. It is, I did not get it fixed, so
Okay.
it's a little wobbly, so I went ahead and just hit start.
That's okay, Dad, we're hunting spring.
I forgot to take it down.
Yep. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Said, see you next time.
Yeah, I'll get figured for next year, I'll be back.
Yeah. You bet, don't, because I mean, I would tell you how to do it if I ever said it. Yeah. Yeah.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Open the meeting with public comment. Is there any public comment?
Normally I would get on the agenda for this, I apologize for that lateness of this. You talked about it before, about getting a grant for doing skilled home health through public health. And so I did write a grant for that. Wasn't sure if I was going to get it. The money that was that I wrote for was a year-end carryover allocation from Rocky Mountain Development Council. And so we were awarded $2,941. That grant does require a 15% match, which would be $519. So we can, next year, then we can actually, in July, we can apply for that, the full grant, and then we can actually get more money to do skilled services through our department. So I bring this to you to see if you will agree to the 15% match on this carryover money. We can do things like, you know, just check up on people who are getting discharged from the hospital that need to have vital signs, wound care, medication setups and teaching and stuff like that, which I think that would be a huge asset to our seniors in our county. And since we probably are not going to need the money for the billing company at this point, they did not get back to me in time for that to work out. And so that was $1,100, so we can maybe just take that money and put that from the nurse general fund to make this match work. So just need your blessing on that. So she, when this money comes through as carryover money at the end of the year, they very quickly have to get their budgets done. And so I found out about this late on Wednesday before the holiday, and she wants the budget like ASAP today. And so that's why I come this morning to make sure it's okay with you guys that we do a county match on that carryover money for home health.
Mr. Chair, if I may, that money is already in Teresa's budget, so the only thing we need to do is when the grant comes in, have that go through the public process, but as far as authorizing that match, that's already in her budget. And just because nobody has a crystal ball. So I would say yes.
Do we want to make a motion on that?
No, I don't think it's appropriate because this is just public comment,
Okay.
and we don't have to make a motion because we're not changing anything. We do have to make a motion when the grant comes through for signature.
I assume that what will happen, the same with the respite grant, because we ended up getting that as carryover the first time, and then we applied for it this year and got it. They'll send a task order, just like the rest of my grants, that tell me what's required of me to send to the state and everything, but they need to wrap up their year-end budget, so they need a budget from me that says, how much I'm gonna spend in wages and supplies and stuff like that. And she kinda wanted it like today, if she could get it, so that's why I came this morning. But she'll send a task order and then I'll bring that to the commission as well, so.
Okay,
Okay,
thanks, Teresa.
all right, thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. I think it would be good, though, for the record, to make sure that at least two of us are a yes for the process.
We all three are. So.
Okay.
Any other public comment? So we can go to a certificate of survey review. Do you have that?
I do not, we're going to wait a
Don't?
week.
Okay. So we go to the 10 o'clock, Nicole Brown, Community Development Director, County Board appointment process.
Before we begin on that, I wanted to introduce you to the newest administrative assistant to the Environmental Health and Community Development Office, and also the commissioners. So this is Helen Coleman. I asked her to come down this morning just to kind of see the process.
Welcome aboard, Helen. It's nice to have you.
Thank you.
So regarding boards, I'm not bringing forward any appointments today. I simply want to discuss the process of board appointments. And I have a memo that was put together by the commission in 2018. And you have yours. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, thanks.
Basically just with bullet points on this process. And I want to know if this is the process you want to continue to follow. I'm sorry, I'm throwing documents at you. And the second sheet here is the vacancies that we currently have on boards. And by vacancies, those are terms expiring. So we have received a considerable amount of feedback from the board managers. I reached out to all of them beginning of November and let them know which members had expiring terms. I've gotten well over 50% letters of interest from those board members, either wishing to stay, a couple of them wanting to be released. So the way I put this kind of quick list together is just to show you expiring terms, but that also means maybe some vacancies.
Very good.
And so today, I'm really just looking for instruction and to have a dialogue on the process. Are we going to continue to follow this process that was put together in 18? And actually, it's called the Broadwater County Board Membership Practice. Are we going to continue following this? There's no, how do I want to say this? According to this practice, there's no vetting of any existing board member by their board. So I'm going to use the planning board. So we have a few board members with expiring terms on the planning board. Do you want me to present that to the planning board themselves to determine if they want this or these individuals to stay? And then I will bring that to the commission, or do you want to eliminate that or not follow that process? It's not listed here on this memo, but it is something that we have done in the past.
The idea with that was to give the board members a voice, a chance to have an opinion. Of course, final decision lies with the commissioners. I think we continued it last year, but it wasn't in our process, right?
Right.
Yeah. So do we want to make it an official part of our process, or do we want to just continue to do it in practice?
I think make it official part of our practice so that everybody knows that
Yep.
that's how we're doing it. So,
I agree with that.
yeah.
Yeah, so we can add that as a bullet then.
Mhm.
So, on these boards, why do we have 4 planning members and 4 solid waste members?
A lot of times, when I come in here every year and new members get 1 year, if, say, a 3-year member decides to leave early, the new member coming in only gets 1 year. And so we try to stagger those terms, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. Like on the solid waste board, one of them is a vacancy that has not been filled. So there really would have just been 3 expiring terms, but 1 is a vacancy. And the planning board the same. We had 2 first-year members because we had 2 members leave last year. And so we had 2 first-year members last year, and then we had 2 3-year members last year. I'm sorry, with terms expiring this year.
So when we reappoint these people that are if we reappoint these people that are first-year members, can we give one of them a 2-year term or one of them a 3-year term so that we're not continually changing 4 people on these boards?
Yes, and that's what I try to do every year, is look at staggering those terms. Then, yeah, I will continue to do that. When I bring forward the list to you, generally the end of December, beginning of January, that says, these are my recommendations of their terms. It has nothing to do with the person. It's simply looking at staggering the terms.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
Yes, ma'am.
I understand the process of appointing people to a 1-year term to see if it works out, but it really does mess up the 3-year. It really messes up the 3-year term because if a term is up in 3 years and you put somebody in for 1, then somebody's got to remember that the 2 years has to be filled out. If people were appointed for a 3-year term when they come up, or if it's filling out a term appointed to fill out that term, I think this would be far less complicated, in my opinion.
Thank you.
To Ann's point, the different positions on a lot of the different boards come from different areas or different areas of expertise. If we did have a cycle for that seat versus that individual, we'd be able to perhaps make this simpler and maintain having just 2 or 3 people changing, not 4. Might be something to look into.
would most of these people that you have that apply to these boards, would they have any hesitancy if that was a 3-year term versus a 1-year term?
No, not necessarily, and I think because they all have the ability to leave early if they choose, you know, they're not bound to that.
Right.
And not that I do think it's a good idea to have renewing board members and actually any new applicants to be vetted by each board. That's just gonna take a little more time, because I don't know how many boards are actually going to be meeting before the end of December.
You worked with managers about communication via email on that
Mhm.
question too,
Correct.
yeah.
And I believe, you know, that's something that should be done via email, because it can be a sensitive topic. It's not really something that you wanna take a vote in a public meeting. Does everybody want John Smith to stay on the board? Raise your hand, yes or no. It really is something that the manager can email, I believe, can email their board members and say, these are the list of applicants. Do you approve? I mean, it is that, I guess I should pose that more as a question than a statement. Is that a violation of open meeting laws?
I don't believe it would be, because I think it'd fall under the ministerial portion of open meeting laws. Yeah, why unnecessarily, one, embarrass somebody that doesn't need to be embarrassed, violate their rights to privacy, which is a constitutional right, and 3, would you get an accurate response? And who are we serving here? We're serving 6,000 people in Broadwater County. So I think when you look at it that way, yeah, there's ability to communicate via email without violating any open meeting laws when it falls under ministerial.
Okay.
And then the final decision is all brought forward anyway for a vote, so nobody has violated anything because the public has had full view of all the information that we're making the final decision on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, that answered all of my questions. Do you have any other questions or instructions for me regarding this process?
I do. One of the things that we did last year is we had Andy Hunthausen, who is a commissioner from Lewis and Clark County, come and do a training in January of all our board members. We adopted their board processes and template for how the process works. And one of those pieces is term limits. Lewis and Clark has a 2-term limit for board positions. We don't have nearly the people to choose from that Lewis and Clark County did, so it's more loose. But I think, we will try and follow term limits, with the idea being, if somebody is interested, absolutely we welcome them aboard. But if we continue for years and years and years with the same board, and there's other people who are interested who could bring forth new ideas or ideas that hadn't been thought of before, should we open the doors and allow for new folks? And someday we're going to have, if we don't allow for any new people, when we do have a need for new folks, they're not going to be willing to step up. So, do we want to add that as a bullet that we will try and adhere to term limits with the understanding that we understand if there are no other applicants or people who are qualified, that we will maintain as best we can? I don't know what the wording would be. What's your thoughts on that? And Nicole, your thoughts are more than welcome on that too.
I'm trying to think, last year, and this kind of is going to relate to a question that I want to ask later, is we did our board training, and we kind of we developed a little packet that we handed out to everybody. I'm trying to remember if that was in there. I don't have it in front of me, so I don't know that for sure, but.
I recall it being there.
I
But
kinda
again,
remember
didn't
that,
write it.
I remember that
definitely do.
being in there, is that was
And
kind
it
of,
was 6 years, and
Yeah.
so they did term, 2-term limits,
right,
but all of their terms were 3 years. And so
Right.
with that being said, if we're going to do 2-term limits, we should look at making every term 3 years, because it would not be fair to someone to
Right.
have, generally, our general practice has been a first-year member gets a 1-year term. Their second year, they get 2 years, every third, fourth, fifth, 10th year on, it's a 3-year term.
Right.
Well, it wouldn't be fair to someone, their first and second year, they only get, or their first and second term, they only get 3 years, whereas someone else, if we start this, they will get 6.
right.
And I shouldn't say fair, I appreciate all of our volunteers, I know it's a thankless job, so maybe fair isn't the best word. But, if we do look at term limits, we really should look at doing 3-year terms only.
Or a number of years.
Right, or a number of years, and not do term limits, and say 6 years max.
Yeah. Unless there's no one else interested, because I think that's important because of our size, we're growing, but we still don't have nearly the same pool of people.
To where you could give preference to someone, if you have,
Right.
if you have 2 expiring terms and 3 applicants, you could give preference
Sure.
to that.
So I guess I'd like to look at what our language is in that
Okay,
first, and then, kind of adjust it along those lines.
Sure. But maybe following that process and adding a
Mhm.
bullet,
Sure.
okay. Since we'll be changing this is probably the time to throw out any additions.
so in the meantime, just because I want this process to keep going, if we do add this to the next agenda to clean this up a bit, and then also look at those, the board bylaws that you adopted. But I'm still in the background going to be working with board managers and advertising, because that's already part of our process, advertising as widely as possible for all of these positions.
Yes. And a request that was made last year is to have a short paragraph describing what the boards do. Are you including that too in your
Yeah,
advertising?
I certainly can.
Okay, that would be great. Their responsibilities, but also their opportunities.
Yeah, last year I requested that because I don't know, I'm involved with 2-3 of these boards, but I don't know the functionality of each of these boards, and so I can make that request to the board managers to send me just, 4 sentences or more. But if I don't get a response, I'm not going to hold off advertising.
Perfect.
But
If you
I
don't
would
get
like
a
that.
response, will you let us know so that we
Mhm.
can maybe fill that in so that there
Yeah.
isn't a blank?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So the question I was gonna ask, Allison contacted me and said that she's received a lot of response from folks that liked our training last year, our board training,
Right.
and would like to have it again. So I guess after the first of the year, after we get our boards organized,
Mhm.
if you guys would like to do that again, I think it would be a good idea.
I
think
think it
it's
would be too.
I agree. I think, I'd like to see it annual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super.
Do you think that we would be more inclined to get more people if we move this thing back to, instead of trying to have all of these boards get members in December, have them get members in January and present them to the board in February? Because we run into this holiday window of nothing gets accomplished without it all being helter-skelter. To put it into January so that people have the time to get everything together and then present them in February instead of trying to get them going in January.
I see what you're saying, but also, some of these members, their terms expire, well, they do expire, the ones that are expiring, December 31st.
Okay.
So if there was a board that was to meet in January, I can't
May
speak
not have
legally
any
because I'm
members.
not an attorney and I don't play one on TV, but I would say that that member couldn't vote because they've not been renewed officially by this board.
Okay.
But I do understand what you're saying with the holidays, and so, I thought I was getting a jump start in starting this in November. Maybe in 2020, I need to start in October. October 1st.
Well, and if we go back in
Advertise.
time, when it used to start July 1st, you
Mhm.
had the same issues,
Mhm.
in the spring, there's just no good time.
Sure.
No good time. Everybody's always busy, so we changed it because most citizens go by the calendar year. It's just government that goes by the funny months to create a year. We thought it'd be easier.
Sounds like you've got a lot of response already, so.
Over 50%.
Yeah.
And not, but I have not advertised
Yeah.
yet. So this is only the feedback that I've received from members that want to continue their terms. And
Sure.
like I said, there's 2 of them that wish to step down. So, you know, I can advertise, I'll start advertising today. I can send something off to the paper, you know, just real brief. These are the boards that I won't make it this lengthy, but these are the boards that are looking for positions. I don't think that we need to list how many positions.
Sure.
Because I don't want that to eliminate anyone wanting to apply, if you will.
I
So.
agree.
Okay, yeah.
And if, you know, the public knows of folks or, you know, somebody that might be perfect for the job, I think that's always good, sometimes to encourage folks to apply. So. All right.
Okay, thanks, Nicole.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Nicely
Nicole.
done, thank you.
Mike, I have a question for Nicole.
Yes.
Just looking at the calendar, do you guys have enough weeks, meetings in December to finalize this with the advertising?
I think we will.
Okay,
I'm
just so
optimistic.
they will know if they're
Sometimes,
still
but-
on board. Thank you.
Yeah, I think if we make this the very last, I mean, I'm going to push it off to the very last possible meeting, for
Right.
sure, because I want to get as many applicants as possible, but, you know, we have an entire month. If someone has an interest in serving, they already know that they have an interest in serving, or they've already got an inkling, I hope.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go to 10:15, Silos Recreation Area Operations, Options, Opportunities, Bureau of Rec, and Concessionaire Contract Letters.
Mike, do you have a copy of the letter I sent this morning? Here's, just short, sweet, and to the point.
Did you get a copy of this, Bill?
I did, yes.
Okay.
I found 2 edits. First one is on line 2, an opportunity to update the current contract. And then the second paragraph of paragraph 2, starting in the middle, being done by JSJ Inc. On behalf of Broadwater County. So if we can agree or vote to send this letter, I would request that we just make those 2 changes. And then sign, we could sign after the meeting. And I would move that we proceed, as we discussed in our working meeting last week, and sign the letter to Sharon to reopen the contract for revisions and updates.
And this is the concessionaire contract with JSJ, not the county concessionaire contract with the Bureau of Reclamation.
This is, yes, I think we should do both. But this one would be just this, and then the other one would be a separate
Okay.
action.
Is there a second then?
Yeah, I'll second that. I think it's a process we need to get going as soon as possible.
Okay, so I guess for discussion, I think, you know, the meeting that we had with Sharon the other day was quite an eye-opener, really, because if you go through the contract and you talk to them about what they do, the stuff that the county lacks in doing, simply because it's not really, our crews are a lot busier than they have to go to maintain a campground. But she does a lot of work out there that's, in reality, is required by the county. I think that we need, and when we discuss some things about different payouts and stuff with certain things that I think will be beneficial to both her and to the camp area, and hopefully that area, all of our repairs are done, so we don't have to spend so much money maintaining that place. The bottom line, I think, is when we reopen this contract is that in some way, that facility has to become self-supporting, so we're not putting our money into it. Which, you know, we put some money into it this last year, but we had some repairs that were not done, that just basically built up because of the winter. So I'm hopeful that we won't have to do that again, and we talked about some ideas to redo that. I would hope most of that stuff would go forward.
Yeah, I agree, Mike. I mean, the fund does need to support itself, and hopefully we can put some money into a CIP to make those repairs that need to be made there. So I think that's the goal of doing this.
I agree as well, and what was most valuable for me was talking about how to solidify our partnerships, and making sure that we're all moving forward on the same road with the same vision.
Okay. So is there any other further discussion? So the motion is to send the letter and continue on with, reopen this contract. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. So we will correct the 2 grammatical errors and mail this letter to Sharon.
Sounds good.
Okay? Thank you. Yes, Tim.
Just a point of clarification, Mr. Chairman, Tim Readout News. Will this letter that goes out to Sharon regarding the renewal of the contract for the concessionaire, is that exclusively to Sharon, or as earlier stated in these meetings, that contract was going to be opened to the possibility of other concessionaire interests to step up and maybe offer different views or different opportunities? That's just a question, is if it's going to go out public or if it's going to be pretty much an internal housekeeping business.
Well, I would think that this letter is addressed to Sharon. I would almost think that after we got done discussing exactly, you know, whether or not we're gonna reopen this current contract or whether we're gonna change the contract and then open that contract would depend on these discussions that we have about the contract. I believe that contract is a 10-year contract, is it not?
I think so.
It can be, it can be,
Could be, I don't think.
it can be terminated and then re-advertised, but you have to do it in a certain time frame.
I don't think it has an expiration, but I'm just speaking from memory.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I guess my thoughts is that however the negotiations end up will determine whether we, you know, if there's an agreement, and if there's not an agreement, then we'll probably ask for someone else.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner. Again, just for clarification, because there has been discussions about reopening the contract to wide open, which the discussion also went that because it is on VOR land, that goes nationally, and there's a process that has to be followed in order to make that under the process. So I just wanted a clarification for that purpose.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's see, our next one was 10:45, we have some mail here. Have the minutes from November 25th, 2019.
I move to approve as submitted, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion been made, second to approve minutes from November 25th, 2019 is permitted. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. We have approved claim list in the amount of $39,773.69.
I'll move that we approve, pay the approved claims of $39,773.69.
I'll second that motion.
Motion been made and second to pay claims in said amount. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Have a holiday greetings card here from the Great West Engineering folks in Helena. That's it for the mail. Let's see, do we want to take care of
Do
this?
that? Want to do that?
Letter to the mental health, local mental health advisory council.
Sure. Melinda, you want to give us kind of a short overview of what we're applying for in this grant?
We're applying for the Mobile Crisis Unit grant, and there's a lot of requirements on it, and one of them is for the commissioners, we need the support of it, that you have agreed to support me and the funding to match the grant, kind of is what I'm gathering at.
Mm-hmm.
I've already started kind of on this next process with this grant, not even realizing it, with this job of what my vision of was for it. So this is basically what we're just needing for that, and our deadline is tomorrow at 2, so we're kind of like at the crunch time of
Right.
this.
Okay,
I would have never thought that I'd be here today doing this kind of stuff.
sure. I'll go ahead and read the letter. It says, to whom it may concern. It is with great pleasure we write a letter of support for the mobile crisis grant being applied for by our Mental Health Local Advisory Council. Our local advisory council provides an invaluable service to our community and for members of our community that are faced with a mental health crisis. When a face-to-face interaction is warranted, our peer-to-peer staff works with individuals who successfully resolve the crisis in a safe, comfortable, and respectful manner. In many instances, the mobile crisis team in their rapid response, assessment, and intervention prevents the arrest of individuals in crisis and also from them being placed into custody and the justice system. Another objective of the mobile crisis team is to help divert people in crisis from a psychiatric care unit or hospital. Our current program also provides a link to people searching for the needed behavioral health services. As the ongoing demand for crisis care is occurring, the Broadwater County Board of County Commissioners fully supports the efforts of the local advisory council as they seek the mobile crisis grant funding. The Board of Commissioners has set aside funds and is also committed to matching available grant funds for the continued operation and success of this valuable program.
Thank you.
I'll move that we sign the support letter for the Mobile Crisis Unit grant. I think it's an awesome program.
Is there a second?
No second?
Motion been made, second to approve letter to send. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
And it's kind of the same thing with Teresa's grant. The support letter isn't necessarily required to vote on. What we'll have to vote on is acceptance of the grant when it comes in. And then that'll have to be on the agenda. Thank you.
You're gonna take that with you then, Melinda, today? Okay,
Take it over to Lynn.
okay. If we can make a copy of that before. So do we have a copy of it for our records then as well, please? Thank you.
Go to our 1045 Raidersburg Historical Preservation Society Tax Fund request.
Thanks, Deb. So to complement what Deb just gave you, I reached out to Roz at Department of Revenue a couple weeks ago, last week, I don't remember the day. And she sent me to Linda Sather, Department of Revenue. Linda is the person who does most of the compliance for nonprofits. And what happened this past year, last year, was in 2019, the legislature passed, I think it was House Bill 389. And what that did is its intent was to close some loopholes that 501c3s and nonprofits were using to avoid taxes. Your bigger agencies, your bigger nonprofits have tax attorneys or accountants on their boards who saw this particular statute and were able to make the changes for their boards. What happened in your smaller counties is a number of nonprofits didn't realize that this law was passed, didn't realize how it had affected them, and got caught in this law, kind of unintended consequences, if you will. So that's what has happened to the Raidersburg Historical Preservation Society. So I asked Linda, I said, what are other small counties doing? She said, this has gone on all over the state. You guys are not alone. She said, what a lot of commissions are doing is they are passing resolutions to forgive the taxes for 1 year based on they missed the deadline. She said, what paperwork is required for the next year is articles of incorporation, a deed, IRS letter recognizing them as a 501c3 or a 501c something. There's 4, 6, 9, I'm not sure how many others. And the official request to have those property taxes forgiven in the future based on the fact that they are a qualified 501c, whatever. So Deb has in front of you, Daryl, all the required information, I understand. This was presented, it just didn't make it to the desk at Department of Revenue. So what we can do for this next year is work with Linda, make sure this is all what's required, get it to Department of Revenue by March, and we should be able to get a confirmation confirmation letter next year exempting the Raidersburg Historical Preservation Society from taxes in the future. Department of Revenue is the only one that can cancel taxes or give that long-term relief. As far as a 1-year relief, that is what we can do for this year. And again, she suggested instead of getting into the weeds, just do it based on a deadline was missed. You don't have to do anything more detailed than that, she said. So I think that's all my update, unless you guys have any questions or you guys have questions.
Okay. So once all this is filed, then we don't have to do this yearly?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, the taxes are due now, so that's where we come in for giving the taxes for this 1 year, based on the fact that they comply, but the deadline was missed. So, my suggestion would be that we put it on the agenda next week with a resolution. I highlighted what needed to be changed on that one,
Sure.
and
And I think also we weren't quite
follow
sure
through.
what they were claiming their exemption under. And I see that paperwork's in there for the nonprofit, the charity and the museum and that stuff, right? Yeah.
Right, and we have sent that in to the Department of Revenue,
Right.
so it's gone.
And what we'll do is follow up with Linda and make sure that she doesn't have any boxes unchecked. And that way there will be no surprises next year. This should go through
Perfect,
without any hiccups.
thank you.
Yeah.
So does this take care of, so our 2018, the first year we were ever taxed was 2018, and now 2019.
Okay, so it would be the 2 years that you'd be
Yeah, and
requesting.
We started it last year and thought it was taken care of. And
Yeah.
I have a recording to that effect, but, so.
So did you pay it for 18? No,
No,
okay, so
because
what
it
you're
was-
looking for is just forgiveness for the 2 years.
Right.
Okay,
And forever,
right.
Forever?
forever.
How do I do that? I think the only question that I would have is the solid waste portion of that. How do we deal with that? That's on that tax bill.
Yeah, and I don't know what that answer would be,
Okay,
but that would be something to, probably Linda is the expert
okay.
on that, and how fees, if they're forgiven.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know,
Mhm.
good question.
Our solid waste, the only time we have it is when we have our monthly meeting, which is very little. And then during our events, like our Raidersburg Days and stuff like that, so. And usually one of the members take that in down to the garbage, so however that comes out.
Okay,
But we also pay solid waste on a mobile home that we don't use either, so, but we do pay those taxes.
Is that through the Historical
Yeah.
Society also?
Yes.
Yeah. And we got a sticker, and we pay those taxes and have that solid waste, and we do pay those taxes.
Do you use that mobile home, is there someone living in that, or you just, do you use it for your meetings, or?
No, it was donated to the organization thinking that we could use it as a rental, and that would be income to help us pay our insurance and not taxes, power bill and stuff like that. So, and it's just an old,
We're selling the trailer, and we'll just have a piece of land.
folks out there were helping us out, but it's not a burden more than helping us out, so.
So if you sell the trailer, then you won't have an assessment on it for solid waste, right?
Well, we still have the land
But I think the assessment's on the.
on the building itself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're okay to pay the solid waste, we just,
Yeah, we don't have a problem with that at all. So, however it shakes out.
we'll get an answer though for you on that, so at least you know
Yeah.
what that answer is
I
and
would,
why.
I would think that you could just set that up as a nonprofit business, like a business account. You would just have a card that you use for solid waste, but it would just be charged to your business. It would just be, like I pay a fee for my business, that's the same thing that you would do with that. I think Mary could figure something out, the way to do that.
Okay.
So do we want to put this on the agenda for the next meeting then?
I do, I think we need to redo that resolution. I don't have one in electronic copy that I could find. That one is for Crow Creek, because we never did, because it was not turned in, we didn't get a letter back from the Department of Revenue. So, we don't have that for this. So, if we can just make the changes to the resolution, put on a public hearing for next meeting,
Okay.
address this for 18 and 19,
Mhm.
and get it taken care of.
Okay.
That's what I would like to do.
Okay.
Yeah, no, let's do that.
Okay,
Get that fixed up, because then, because Doug, he's kind of waiting for this process to happen, so.
Okay.
Okay.
So what is the status of the Toston Crow Creek Community Center?
That's kind of a different situation, isn't it?
it is, it's very different.
Yeah.
The two were kind of treated as the same, but they really are two different monsters. They were denied based on the fact that they don't qualify for the exemption. The reason they don't qualify for the exemption is the exemption requires, you guys qualify because you use the property. It's required that the property is used. Well, the property is on the verge of being condemned or condemned, certainly falling down. So what I would like to propose is that we work with those folks on a plan. We need a plan for what they're going to do with the property, give them some time to work it through, so perhaps forgiving the taxes as we are with Raidersburg, but with a deadline that this plan will be implemented, whatever it is going to be. But without qualifying for the exemption, it kind of ties our hands unless
So
there's,
they need to go through all this paperwork
exactly,
and get certified the right way.
and show they're using the property. And that's the trick
Okay.
with them, with that statute. Or maybe there's another statute too, I don't know.
Yeah,
But that one in particular, the one they applied under, requires use of the property.
oh, okay, okay. Okay, so we will have this on the agenda for the 16th.
Thank you both.
Is there a time or?
We generally do 10:15. Would
Okay.
that work to
Yeah,
hold to our usual time for
Should work.
public hearings?
Yeah, it should work.
Okay.
And you said, what day?
The 16th?
Oh, of December.
Could we do it next week though? Today's the 2nd, could we do it the 9th?
Yeah, don't we have Mako training next week?
Oh,
We do.
and it starts Monday morning?
It starts Monday
I
morning.
don't know, I haven't looked at the agenda.
Okay. 16th then.
Can you move it to the 20? Oh, you don't want to move it to the 23rd.
I'm good with that.
Well, the 23rd is right before the 25th of December.
And the 24th.
I know. Okay, so you guys are still meeting?
The 23rd?
The 23rd would be better. I have a board meeting on the 16th.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that gonna cause an issue for Doug, waiting another couple weeks? What I'm wondering is, would we want to plan a meeting for this, say like the 12th to 13th of December, sorry, so like the Friday, the 13th before the training, or the 12th in the afternoon?
Either one of those days are good with me.
Like 4 o'clock on that Thursday after our department head
On the 12th?
training? Yeah.
Sure.
Would that work for you guys, late in the afternoon on the 12th?
Okay.
Doesn't put you out?
No, I'm good there.
Okay.
So late in the afternoon, time
4 o'clock?
4 o'clock. Okay, here?
Yes.
Okay.
And if this room is used, we'll let you know. It might be our office upstairs. I don't
Okay.
remember what Thursdays this is used for driver's examiner. I don't remember which ones. Do you guys?
I don't either.
Okay.
The first, it says up here, the first and third.
First and third, so that would be the
Okay,
second.
that's
We
the
should be
second.
good. Should be here.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks you guys for coming in.
Thank you.
That's the end of our agenda. Is there anything else?
So do I understand, there won't be a commissioner meeting Monday, the ninth?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I did want to talk about department head meetings,
What?
department head
Oh, yeah.
meetings.
Mhm.
I received an email last week about a potential change. I responded, we need to talk about it.
Yeah.
So my request is, let's talk about some options. What I did is I printed a couple of pages from Jim Nyes. So Jim Nyes was an HR expert we worked with years ago. He is who Michelle Edmonds, our current HR, bought her practice from. We staff. That was Jim Nyes. So he helped us at a very difficult time with a very difficult situation. But what you have in front of you is just a couple of pages. I didn't print the whole thing, but you're welcome to it if you want it. But the first page, you'll notice at the bottom is exceptions to open meeting laws. What well, basically there's 3 exceptions, and you have them in a little bit more wording than we usually get, but usually it's defined as legal strategy, personnel that would violate their rights to privacy, and ministerial. Ministerial, if you look on Black's Law Dictionary, defines ministerial as that which is done under the authority of a supervisor, not judicial, which involves obedience to instructions, and it's defined by Jim Nyes as management, basic management. So if you look on page 2, this is where the question really comes in. So one thing we're told constantly, and this ministerial comes from Mako trainings as well. Michelle Quiggery, who is contracted by Mako, has done a number of HR trainings for us. I would say we've been to easily 20 HR trainings. And this is always dealt with because if you look at the law and do a literal interpretation, you'll find that laws contradict each other left and right. So when you look at page 2 and you see that we need to adhere to the rights of the public to participate, and that's why we ensure that documents are available and all of the things we do to follow that right. Then there's the right to know, and then there's the right to privacy. So if you honor an employee's right to privacy, you could argue you're violating somebody else's right to participate. And we know from the Mako trainings that that happens, and you have to take into intent. So my question with the department head meetings, the other thing I wanted to bring out was MCA 742110, and you guys can look it up. I brought my law book with me if you want. That defines the county commissioners, Board of County Commissioners' job responsibility to supervise departments. So with that also being an MCA, and then Harold Blatty was here a month or 2 ago and said one commissioner has 0 authority to do anything. You have to do everything as a team of 3. Even if you have a 2-1 vote, you still have to do everything as a team of 3. So, department head meetings. If we just have one commissioner attend, are we doing our job by MCA? Are we violating our job by MCA? Yeah. Can one commissioner do anything in those? No, we can't. So I was wondering if, instead of dividing the commission, HR trainings by other counties have been done differently. And there is some precedent here for this as well. But if the meeting is an HR training, not a commission meeting, advertised and reminded and agenda'd by HR or HR admin, not the commissioners, and the commissioners attend not as a commission, but as attendees, then we're able to do our job by MCA.